Our next two presenters are Frano Kavar and Bill Black. You're going to do it. You're not going to team up. Okay, got it. Go ahead, Frano.
I think Bill will just follow. All right, Chair Councillor Penner and members of committee. On behalf of the Calgary Construction Association, we thank you for the opportunity to speak on the Calgary Climate Strategy's Pathways to 2050 document. My name is Frano Kavar, and I am the Director of Government Relations at the CCA, and I am pleased to be joined by our President, Bill. And thank you for accommodating us to speak and extending your break. We are a professional association of over 850 member companies throughout the Calgary region, and it was important for us to be involved in the conceptualization of this topic. Indeed, the CCA firmly believes that the City of Calgary must adopt a climate strategy to be able to compete on the world stage in terms of talent and livability. The CCA and many in our industry see an incredible opportunity for our resources, effort, and technical expertise to be applied to the development of future strategies that are related to the way we design, build, and operate Calgary's built environment under a climate-focused strategy. We thank Dick Eberson and the entire climate resiliency team for the opportunity to speak and engage on this very important topic. In general, we are supportive of the aspirational direction that this document is taking, but we do caution you in certain areas of the implementation of new policies and procedures. Aspirational goals are important as they set the stage for action, but action must be realistic and pragmatic to effect real change. The focus of our remarks will be mainly on the commercial side of the construction industry, and we will be available for questions should you have any. Specifically, we believe that new buildings really are the place to start for the strategy. We are concerned that in the present form, the retrofit construction goals of this strategy are untenable. For example, to achieve an annual conversion rate of 19,000 existing residential dwellings and a deep retrofit of 370 commercial structures would mean roughly 52 home retrofits every day and roughly one building per day for the next 30 years. In its current form, we are inclined to ask, can the city's planning department issue permits at that rate? And what of material costs, supply chain considerations, and workforce challenges? What upfront costs to taxpayers are required? Therefore, in its present form, we really do believe that the best place to start again is with new buildings. Setting efficiency standards on new builds is much more realistic and feasible to begin addressing this important issue. We are supportive that the first pathway as defined in this plan addresses this by developing building energy labels, energy performance benchmarks, and incentives to help reach the goal of net zero emissions. Indeed, the industry is already responding. Residentially, many home buildings have begun to add heat pumps and solar panels to their designs, and commercially, we are seeing a greater push toward LEED certified buildings. The City of Calgary is not the first city in Canada to go down this path. Indeed, we are one of the last to do so. Therefore, we encourage the City of Calgary to examine practices in places like Vancouver, Toronto, and Edmonton. For example, the City of Vancouver developed a zero-based emissions exchange program, also known as ZEBEX, which partners with the public and private sectors, as well as university institutions, and is in part funded by the federal government. Together, they develop case studies, demonstrative buildings, material tests, and etc., to showcase the best possible solutions for the unique environment that they find themselves in. Such a program, like a ZEBEX exchange, isn't currently defined in the strategy, and we would encourage you to explore this as an option. Finally, on the feasibility of retrofitting older buildings. While we are encouraged that the current plan highlights the importance of retrofitting to reach emission standard goals, without the absence of significant investment incentive programs, retrofits might not always make sense. The reality is, these projects need to financially pencil out in order for business owners and building owners, frankly, to consider retrofitting them. For example, in certain instances, it could be more cost-effective to demolish an old building and start new with the new environmental standards than to try retrofitting something already existing. Cost factors may be the most prohibitive factor in reaching the city's broader environmental goals, and we call on you to consider those. Now I'll turn it over to Bill for more wholesome conversation on this.
Good afternoon, and thank you again for the opportunity to participate in this up to this point and then be part of the conversation today. My name is Bill Black, and as Frano pointed out, I'm the President and COO of the Calgary Construction Association. I have 41 years construction industry experience, and 25 of these have been spent in the development and advancement of sustainable buildings, including business case and constructability strategies that have allowed leadership through project success to be achieved in cities all over North America. Some of my comments come from these years of experience in assisting clients and stakeholders achieve these results despite a lot of traditional resistance to some of their moves and their goals. Legacy resistance to climate-related matters in this geography will be a significant obstacle if it is not addressed in the right manner. Those who have resisted in other jurisdictions that I've been involved in have become very strong supporters once they've been engaged in the manner that allows them to be engaged with where they are now in order to be able to jointly and collaboratively investigate financial feasibility and approaches that create the right balance. Homeowners may buy into the principle, but the problem is they're already facing increased cost of living and inflationary matters, so the thought of investing even more money may raise much of the traditional resistance, which does tend to come from a financial perspective. Businesses themselves who are already facing vacancies and other challenges to their traditional commercial model may also find it difficult to have the bandwidth on some of these issues, yet they more than anybody wish to see the improvement in the value and marketability of their buildings. Business case will drive much of the movement forward because funding from government, federal, provincial, or municipal can't go on in an unlimited sense. Ultimately, this does need to be able to be penciled out on a private equity, and if so, it will drive its own momentum through their own entrepreneurship. Many of the other cities who are 20 years or more ahead of where we are right now did not start by focusing on their existing inventory, knowing the massive challenges that requires both residentially and commercially. But they also used a number of strategies designed to earn buy-in, develop momentum and progress, including starting with new construction and all future decisions. Best practices and methodologies can be implemented, measured, and reported as a way to backwards inform into the renovation world. The deliberate strategy around demonstration projects through collaboration with private and sometimes educational establishment. The CERS building in Vancouver at UBC, Centre for Interactive Research on Sustainability. Demonstration projects and metrics are a strong motivator to those who would otherwise be naysayers. They've learned from other cities and other experts and the progress made elsewhere. The city does not need to be the same level of pioneer that others have been. A lot of energy can be wasted in pioneering when there are lessons to be learned elsewhere. Third-party conduits such as the ZEBEX that my colleague has already referred to drive stakeholder engagement between all parties. Ultimately, the way the commercial industry runs as a business, it's capable of net zero, even net positive, and has already done so on numerous projects. But it does so in response to design that is set by others, provided on the business case and goals set by owners, developers, etc., i.e. the source of funding drives the design. The ability to respond technically then follows. Our industry does not benefit from the status quo by which it has been engaged. We have been engaged through a competitive procurement process over the last few decades that has largely evolved to select based on low price. A race to the bottom mentality has prevailed, and net zero buildings do not fit in a race to the bottom strategy. That makes this an incredible opportunity for our industry, probably the best opportunity it's been handed in 40 years to become finally recognized for what it's capable of. However, it does need to be engaged in the proper manner. This means that methods of procurement and low-cost selection processes will likely need to be revisited, as well as engaging with properly qualified entities rather than just leaving it open to all. Project delivery methods will need to become more collaborative, more transparent, and will need to consider the earlier engagement of key stakeholders such as builders, trades contractors and manufacturers and suppliers to participate in a design assist role and in the cost validation. Calgary has a great opportunity. We have the legacy, we have the skill set, we have the added benefit of an energy industry that has the research, science dollars and is already evolving. We could lead the world. However, aspirations are one thing, how we do it is everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Black, for being here with us today.
I thought they were going to be loaded with questions today, and we're just flying through.
So with that...
I have a question, Councillor Penner.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Meehan, go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. So I have a question for Bill, if he's able to come to the mic.
Yes, Councillor.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you so much for being here, Bill. Really appreciated some of your comments, and I guess I just wanted to follow up and you know, I'm really sensitive to this notion that we shouldn't be reinventing the wheel and that we aren't the first mover in this space. And so what can we learn from other cities? And I'm sensitive to your comments that, we don't need to be pioneering things in this strategy. We can kind of be doing, borrowing best practices from other people. And so I guess, is there something specifically that you're seeing within this strategy that you think is unnecessarily pioneering? Or like, I guess I'm just trying to understand your perspective a little more. So if you could speak to that would be helpful.
Well, the part of what I'm referring to in the ZEBEX, we did invite Sean Pander from the City of Vancouver to present on the City of Vancouver's experience through using ZEBEX to implement the Passive House approach, and they used a ZEBEX as a conduit between the city and business, developers and designers. And so the fact that these are specific approaches that were pioneered in New York and now have seen benefit in Vancouver, I think they bear naming and identifying and study, because I think there's acceleration built into us lending, our ears to what they have to say. And I've found in 25 years, those who have pioneered and made great changes are generally very willing to share with others who want to take inspiration from what they have achieved. City of Chicago, Denver, LA, and other such cities in the US all have private and public entities that have done the things that everybody said were impossible in the built environment.
Okay, thanks for that, Bill, and I can certainly follow up with some maybe questions to administration on that. As a follow-up, you also mentioned, engaging the construction industry and, more broadly, folks who see this as an attack on the Alberta way of life is a really critical aspect of moving forward. In terms, so point very well taken. Is there something in the mechanism of how we're proceeding forward that flags as an issue for you in terms of our approach to engagement? Is there something you want us to take away that we need to be doing differently on engagement, or is your message simply keep engaging?
I would say take engagement to the next level, find a pilot project and actually get the boots on the ground working on this. Rather than working on theory. One of the things about our industry, we love to actually build stuff. It's painful sometimes for folks in our industry to sit and talk about it. And I think if there's a way to find a way to take engagement to the next level, to create proof and learning opportunities through demonstration projects, that would be the next step.
Okay, thank you. I can't see into council chambers very well, but I think I see Mr. Eberson nodding very vigorously in the corner of my screen here. And so, yeah, I'll follow up with some further conversations with administration, but just want to thank you again for being here. I do have another question, Councillor Penner, but for Mr. Germain, but I will hold because I see that there's a couple more questions for Bill. Is that the best way to proceed?
Yeah, that is most likely. So what we'll do is we'll go to Councillor McLean and then Councillor Wong, who have questions for Mr. Black, and then we will come back to Mr. Germain.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Black. I agree with you that we have to be realistic in our goals, and also I agree with you that Calgary is probably one of the most innovative cities there is, because we're talking about doing the best we can for our climate, and there are other things as well, because Calgary has innovators. We have our fellow from NMAX, we have hydrogen, technologies coming on board, carbon capture and storage, maybe small modular nuclear, all sorts of things happening in our industry. So I guess my question towards you is maybe what you're worried about, again, time, let's not be rushing this, and maybe cost to your industries, because we're, from what reports from the Sun, it looks like $87 billion this plan would cost our city over $3 billion a year. And I'm just going to skip to real quick, because I only got a few minutes here, about how we're going to pay for this, because I see that your report from administration has different sources of funding this climate action. One is property taxes, which won't affect your industry. Maybe a municipal climate tax, offsite levies, which of course would affect the builders, franchise fees, which of course will affect our utility bills. But do you see then, I guess my question, any additional taxing to your Calgary Construction Association? Is that maybe a concern of yours as well, or how do you see trying to pay for these costs affecting your industry?
Well, I think the number one cost that affects our industry is loss of margin through overly competitively bidding to too many, creating the race to the bottom, and high risk contractual relationships that end up with our members losing money and barely getting out alive. So I don't think our industry is fully recognized for the risks we take on. I don't think our industry sees this type of initiative as being a cost to our industry. If anything, it's an opportunity. And if there are costs to businesses who have to share in the burden, if there's an increase in margin through a better visibility of our value and an increase in work opportunities through renovation, retrofits, and new construction, I see that being a healthy balance.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, this is something that we all agree is important to all aspects of Calgary, and so maybe again, to use that holistic approach word, engagement and dealing with everybody all together, and again, in a realistic time matter, I think would be very prudent. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. Councillor Wong.
Thank you. I like our silent communications here. Thank you. Mr. Black, I like what Fallon said earlier in that, new construction is the way to go. Retrofitting existing houses. If you did every single house, it'd take you, beyond our lifetimes to get there. But two questions I've got. One is with regards to new development, new construction areas. And I can't for the life of me remember the development where one developer is promoting a net zero community right from the start. The question I've got from the construction industry's perspective, and Mr. Everson, he and I have talked about this most recently about a district energy power plant where the power plant provides the heating, the hot water, and everything else. I've talked to others about localized power generation, and I think you've heard 3-4 weeks ago, small little nuclear power plants that can power so many houses and that. Do you see Calgary absorbing that type of land use development in our new greenfield areas, and would the construction industry be able to get into that quickly?
Well, I think it's moving a little outside of my expertise range in terms of land development, etc. But if you look at what our industry and the construction industry at large is capable of, just about everything the commercial industry does is bespoke. It's one-off designs, very often very challenging ones. McKimmie Library, just as one example, the entire cladding system on that building had to be created from nothing.
Yeah. Yes.
It was completely innovated by local expertise and a local trade contractor to meet a design. And I believe that motivation, the industry can respond. And if anything, there's a pent-up demand in the industry to respond to higher performance buildings, better projects that have better results that our industry can be proud of.
Okay. The second, going back to existing homes and to make retrofits of existing homes to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, what would be the best way to get industry to, if I can use the term, to make it affordable, whether it be to change heating systems in the housing or more effective windows for energy efficiencies? And is there anything else that they can do that they're not doing today?
I don't think so, because the products and the techniques and the methodologies exist. It's a case of finding the right way to fund them and get them in place with minimum disruption to the occupier.
Okay.
And I think the manufacturing industries that provide the products they are investing in R&D. I think as the demand increases, their response through products and techniques and higher scale of specialty components tends to bring down their price, as we've seen with solar that was referred to earlier. So I think it's going to be an ecosystem of all these stakeholders that brings about an eventual result.
Okay, great. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Wong. Thank you, Mr. Black, for being here with us
Thank
today.
you.